Storytellers of tomorrow, you're back! When you and your friends watch a TV show or read a good book, and you meet up to talk about it, what do you normally say? How many times have you said,
"Can you believe the amount of detail the author used in describing the rocks?"
No, you do not do that. What do you do instead? You talk about
how Lord Bridgerton is throwing away his entire career and fortune to be with a woman society says he shouldn't be with!
Because what really drives a story is characters. People have always been the focus of narratives, and if they haven't been, well, it's probably either been animals or objects that have human thoughts and emotions. Think of that. A story isn't really memorable unless it has heroes you can root for and lament at their failures. To be frank about it, we only really connect with a story when we can connect with the characters, when we can empathize with them. So how do we create compelling characters? How do we make fake people that real people will talk about till the cows come home? Well, the secret is to create characters that are three-dimensional. Today I'm going to share with you the 3 dimensions of character building. Every character should be 3-dimensional. If they're not, they're flat, and you do not want flat characters. The 3 dimensions are as follows: purpose, desire, and personality. Let's get into it. The first dimension! When building characters, you will always arrive at the first dimension, their primary purpose. This could be as simple as who is the hero, who is the villain, who is the background character that screams at the appropriate moments. The first dimension should always be driven by your story's theme. When you know what lesson you're trying to teach in your story, you'll know what characters you need to convey that lesson. If you're writing a story about rebellion and revolution, then you need characters who are being oppressed and characters who are doing the oppressing. Most of the characters in your story will probably be one-dimensional. They'll either be in the background doing something, or their names will get mentioned once, but they won't really have that big of a role. However, all of your characters, even the background ones, serve a purpose, because everyone sees themselves as the hero of their own story. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next, the hero! Your story should always have a protagonist, your hero, and the antagonist, someone who opposes the hero. These are the most basic roles in any narrative because conflict is always what moves a story forward. Keep in mind, newbie writers, that an antagonist doesn't always have to be a sinister villain who just wants to destroy the world. Likewise, your protagonist doesn't have to be a paragon who respects all people and rescues cats. All a protagonist has to do is have a purpose, and all the antagonist has to do is get in the way of the protagonist fulfilling that purpose. Where most writers struggle is that they can never break past the first dimension. They build characters who have specific roles in the story, and that's about it. They might as well be cardboard cutouts and caricatures. That's because one-dimensional characters are always moved by the plot. They go wherever the plot needs them to go and do whatever the plot needs them to do. They're useful, but not memorable. How do we fix this? It's time to bring in the second dimension of character building. The second dimension! If you want to make a character that people can really get behind, then you have to at least bring them into the second dimension. A good story can be something that just happens to your characters. But a great story is the result of a character's choices. Because while conflict drives a story forward, agency drives a story home. The worst thing you could do for your protagonists is just lead them through the plot like they're just puppets with no free will. Your characters should all have wants and needs, and most of the time, those two should not be the same thing. A character may want to fit in, but really needs to reconnect with her family. Someone may want prestige and wealth, but what they really need is to learn humility and gratitude. Remember that what a character wants, and the choices they make to get what they want, are what makes a really good story. Two-dimensional characters each have desires, and they each have something that gets in the way of them achieving their desires. This could either be a lie they're telling themselves, or a physical opposition, like an antagonist. Two-dimensional characters normally go through what's known as a character arc. A character arc is what happens when a character realizes what they've been wanting isn't actually what they need, or they've been doing things wrong the whole time. Example, Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. A boy. When a character goes through a character arc, they realize that in order to get what they really desire, they have to change in some way. Or they could realize that what they've desired is the wrong thing the whole time, and they really need this thing. But of course, we can go even deeper than this. Remember our world building lecture on culture? Well, each person is like their own individual culture. Everyone has experiences and major events from their past, such as childhood, trauma, or injury, that shape who they are and the way they will act. Understanding these major events from your character's pasts will help you understand how they'll act in certain situations and how they see the world. It's lazy writing to just say, well, a character's just that way because. These core events from your character's pasts will drive their wants and clue you in to their needs. If a character was abused in the past, then they probably want to keep their distance and avoid trust. But what they really need is to reconnect with people and let themselves open back up. Understanding all of this will make it so that the characters don't just go through the plot, but that the plot goes through your characters. Think about the ways each of your characters' different personalities have gotten them into the situations they're in, and the kind of choices they'll make to get themselves out of those situations that the plot requires them to be in. Having multiple characters with different wants and contradicting desires is a great way to drive conflict and make your story even more memorable. So we've made a two-dimensional character. They're starting to feel like they could be real and that we can make a really great story out of them. But now we push on to what will make your character not only memorable, but unforgettable and lovable. And that's Dimension 3. The third dimension! The third dimension of character building is what I like to refer to as the cherry on top. This dimension is directly linked to the second, and it's where your character's personality really starts to shine through. Two-dimensional characters can be great, but they still at times feel like they're just filling certain roles. He's the hot broody one, she's the princess with the dark mysterious past, he's the guy that has secret powers that he's trying to keep hidden, and she's the comic relief. You know what I'm talking about. If you want to make your characters feel like they don't just fill in tropes, then you have to bring them up to the third dimension. These are their quirks and tics that align with their life experiences. Do they chew the ends of their pencils? Do they scribble stars on their pant legs? Do they scratch their ears or blink a lot when they're nervous? These may seem like random, unimportant things, but they can actually add incredible layers of subtext. Subtext. Ugh, why is that so hard to say? The way a character acts in the unassuming moments says a lot more about who they are as a person than the big, crazy moments. Their small behaviors show what matters to them. It shows their core identity. If your character is someone who really wants order in a world full of chaos, then maybe they do small things like readjust the silverware every so often, or fix their hair constantly, or retie their shoes. A two-dimensional character is like a cartoon. They're animated and expressive, but a three-dimensional character is like a Russian nesting doll, because with each layer you take apart, you start to see more and more and understand and connect with them on a deeper level. One of my favorite examples of a three-dimensional character is Kaz from Leigh Bardugo's Six of Crows duology. Now Kaz is the protagonist, but he's not a hero. He's actually a really bad person, and he's a criminal. But Kaz is still one of the most compelling characters I have ever read. Leigh Bardugo made Kaz three-dimensional in many ways. He constantly wears gloves, he never exposes any skin, he doesn't like physical contact. These details may seem unimportant, until later in the story you learn more about Kaz's past and why he is the way that he is, and everything starts to make sense. Kaz is tormented by dark, horrible memories of pain and loss, and he can't stand physical contact because they bring those memories back up. That's why three-dimensional characters always feel more real, because the author has taken time to understand and invest in these events in the character's past that have not only shaped their personality, but also the little quirks and traits that the character exudes. If you need help coming up with quirks and tics you can give your characters, then I suggest actually going out into the world and meeting more people, studying different kinds of personalities. Yes, I'm sorry introverts, but sometimes this is the only way. The more people you meet and interact with, the more you start to understand human behavior and understand what people really want, and that will help your characters feel even more believable and real. Above all, it will help your audience to connect with them. In conclusion, just remember that if you really want your story to excel, you have to create characters that your audience can empathize with. You have to make them three-dimensional. A good story is one that happens to your characters, but a great story is one that is led by your characters. In the end, if your audience can empathize and connect with these fictional people that you've created, then you've done something right. Empathy leads to connection, and connection has always been the reason we tell stories. There's tons more I could touch on with characters, and I probably will do that in future episodes, but for now, just remember the three dimensions of character building. you'll know what you need to do and how to create a character that feels real, iconic, and lovable. With that, storytellers of tomorrow, I will see you all next week. Stay awesome, stay creative, let the light shine brightly upon your way.